I love mythology. I first learned about the ancient Greek and Roman myths in the second grade. I learned about ancient Egyptian mythology in the sixth grade. And currently, I'm trying to learn more about Native American and African myths because I really don't know enough about them, which is kind of embarrassing because I've studied mythology basically my whole life. If I had to be a mean girl and I had to rank them starting at the bottom, like the worst ever myth ever would be the 5 stages of grieving, because it's not what people think it is. I'm Lauren-Blair Donovan, and I've walked the walk by losing too many people, which sucks, but now I'm talking the talk. I'm talking to you people on the internet all about grief. And this series is called Good Grief. And it's where I try to start a dialogue with people who are both grieving, as well as those who are watching people grieve and feel helpless. Hopefully I can be of some service. Okay, I bet you're wondering how the stages of grieving can be a myth, because it's like a thing that we've heard about. 5 stages of grief is in TV and movies, so obviously it's gotta be real, right? Plus, it makes sense, right? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. That sounds like that could be emotions one feels while grieving, right? Well, first off, the 5 stages of grief had nothing to do with actually grieving if you had lost someone. The 5 stages of grief was introduced as an idea for people who were dying. And think about it, doesn't that make a little bit more sense? Like, think about those 5 stages through the lens of someone who's dying versus someone who knows someone who's recently dead. Think about that. You got denial. I guess that could technically happen in either event. Same with anger, but bargaining? Think about that for a second. Please, I will be good if my sister just wakes up in the morgue. Please, please, don't let her be dead. Please just have my dad, bust out of his coffin with a nail on it and climb the 6 feet up and come to our door. That's not happening. Sorry to burst that bubble, but you can't bargain once someone stops breathing forever. Just saying. There's definitely cults that are like resurrection cults where they pray for their loved ones to resurrect, but so far, no known cases of that being successful. So just saying. Because unlike, the movie Casper where they have a Lazarus machine, you cannot bring people back from the dead. Death is permanent. So what is there to bargain? I'm sure some of you guys think that I'm Crazy Town USA and I'm making this up, so I will link in the description where this is coming from. I'm not just theorizing, this really did come from an idea of how to accept one's own mortality. But I imagine a bunch of you are also thinking well, who cares? Sure, okay, I guess we can't bargain, but most of this seems like common sense for how we grieve, right? But my question is, why do you need to do things in that order? Because typically in television and movies and stuff, when they discuss this, they show the emotions in order. It's a pretty common belief that this is about grieving, but also that you do these emotions in this order. And that's just silly pants. That makes no sense, and I'm gonna break down why. Denial kind of makes some sense for a first reaction. I'll meet you halfway, because it is very shocking when people pass away. It is kind of what? No, what? Okay. Maybe you got me there, okay? But why do you have to be angry right after you're in denial? I don't think that people go from denial to anger. It would kind of look something like, I just saw him on Tuesday. What? How can he be dead? I don't understand. I am really angry now, actually. Hulk mode activate! I've never witnessed that or experienced that personally, so I'm calling shenanigans. I feel like most people get profoundly sad when they kind of finally absorb the idea that someone that they love died. Call me crazy if you must. We've already discussed that bargaining is just kind of nuts in general after someone died, so we'll skip ahead to depression, which does make some sense because it's kind of like what I just said. People get a little sad when someone dies. It's a fact of life. Usually that's a normal reaction. But also sometimes people kind of get numb first and then they get sad later, but I digress. And acceptance kind of makes sense as a final stage, but does it? To be honest with you, I kind of accepted my dad's death right away. I found his body. So, yes, there was like a little bit of maybe denial, like, no, this is not happening. And he had not been dead that long. So there was a little bit of like probably some kind of bargaining with myself, with the universe, with whatever I may or may not have believed in at the time, where it's just like, oh, I hope this works out. Like, please let this work out. But it was hard not to kind of accept that this was the reality of what happened once the paramedics said he officially passed on. And also, like, my mom was out of town, and when she got back into town later that night, she met us at the hospital because, like, small town and the morgues weren't open. So he went to the morgue at the hospital, and she wanted to see the body before we went home. And then we had a viewing, or a wake as some people call. And then we had a private viewing right before the funeral because his best friend couldn't get back into town until the night before, whatever. I saw his body a lot. So I saw my dead dad like 4 times. It was a little hard not to accept. Like, I understood not what the meaning of him being gone from my life was. That was a process, but I accepted that he was dead. And this even feels a little awkward to talk about because we don't talk about this as a society, but this is a fact of my life. And I hope, I imagine a lot of people will feel seen watching this because sometimes you don't have a choice but to accept that someone died, like right away. Like, it's just the way the cards fall. So if that's the case, I see you acceptance being a final thing is shenanigans. Like, it's bananas. I'm gonna try to use as many silly words as possible to like offshoot the seriousness of this video. Shenanigans, bananas, whatchamacallits. Maybe I don't have a reason to say whatchamacallits. I don't know. I'm riffing at this point. Plus, I still lived at home. Between the week of his passing and his funeral, we had a lot of people at the house. And at one point, someone walked through the garage door that had similar hair as my dad and was wearing a button-down, like, blue shirt that my dad sometimes wore to work. And my brain just kind of automatically out of habit went, oh, cool, my dad's home. Pooh, I did not like that. I did not like that. And so I kind of forced myself from that moment on, he's not coming back. Like, I got that mantra in my head and it was unpleasant, but it was worth it because I did not like those little psych outs that your brain can like punk you with, you know? So yeah, I accepted that he died like within the first week, if not immediately after it officially being called. Well, I've definitely had anger and depression with all the losses that I've experienced. I also had a lot of numbness, like sometimes before, during, and after, because things kind of cycle through. And it's not the same thing as denial. For me, at least, numbness just means that you mentally understand what's happening, but you're not emotionally reacting. Like, you feel kind of empty, or like the tears just aren't coming. There's a distinction between numbness and denial in my personal world, for what that's worth. But also, like, really? Like, is it really that linear? Like, you're depressed after you're angry, and then you never feel those emotions again. Like that, if you haven't been through a huge loss, imagine anytime someone has departed your life, whether it's a friend that you had a falling out with or a breakup, you probably weren't just like angry or sad for a week. You probably cycled through anger and depression and maybe had a week of somewhat normalcy, and then maybe you went back to one or both. You can totally have more than one emotion in the same day too. Like, that grief is really complicated and it's quite the roller coaster. So that's weird to think that, like, oop, it's September, I'm only gonna be depressed this month. Like, that, it doesn't work that way, guys. So it's like 5 stages, 5 emotions, 5 reactions. I've personally felt like way more emotions than that. Like, and usually they're really complicated cocktails of emotions that I don't know how well I can even quantify. You know, bittersweet emotions definitely happened. I guess I can quantify that. Nostalgia, like looking through like photos of childhood and knowing that so many people have passed away, really make me profoundly sad, and they make me nostalgic and they kind of haunt me a little bit, to be honest. And again, I'm grasping at what other adjectives because that feels very limited. I don't feel like I'm actually explaining how I really feel. Now, still, to some extent, looking through old photos, but especially when it was within the first year or two of a passing of a loved one. Grief is complicated. It's not like you can just sum it up on like 5 fingers. Like, that's stupid. I imagine it's just as complicated for if you're dying, but I think those are just general benchmarks that one could hit, and then eventually they make peace, acceptance with the fact that they're gonna die. I felt a need to address this topic because I sat down with a friend of mine a year ago, and she had recently lost a friend of hers, and she very proudly over our lunch announced that she was done the first stage of grieving. And I was like, what? And she's smart, you know, y'all are smart. I'm sure a lot of smarty pants, that's another fun word, right? Not as fun as bananas, but yeah, a lot of you smarty pants probably really thought this was like a real thing in how you grieve. Like, we've all been there, you know, like, but so I want to debunk it because like smart people fall for this stupid cultural mythology, but also it's not a race. Like, because my friend sort of said it with pride. It was like, I've already finished like the first stage of grief. It's only been like 2 weeks. And I'm like, no, it's not like trying to get your chores done so you can go play with your friends outside. Like, don't rush through any feelings that you're feeling anyway, with or without the BS that's the 5 stages of grief, or whether it's, you know, actual real emotions that you're feeling in whatever order they come and however many different emotions they come. The only way out of grief is through it. You have to be present with how you are feeling. You have to not numb it. You can't medicate it. I mean, I guess you can, but like, if you try to numb it or gloss over it, it's going to come back to haunt you later on. So like, just embrace being a mess, embrace being emotional for as long as you need it. And you might feel normal some days, you really might within the first year or so, but you might not feel normal like 2 Tuesdays from then. So it's a process, guys. It's a process. I definitely have videos coming with how long grief takes and how kind of crazy grief is in terms of like thinking you're fine when you're not. Like, oof, I got it covered. I cannot wait. You're gonna love it. So subscribe. Did you catch my little built-in plug there? But yeah, just feel any feelings you want, in any order you want, for however long you want. Don't limit them to 5. Don't make them be in a certain order. That's just bonkers. It is bonkers to do that, guys. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news and tell you something that you thought was real isn't. Like Santa, I don't mean to trigger you and from your childhood. I'm the worst, I know. But I think being honest about the realities of death and grieving and basically everything just makes life that much easier and therefore better than over expecting falsehoods to be true. So please forgive me for telling you something was not real that maybe you thought was real. Usually this is the part of the video where I say that, like, you know, these are just my opinions / experiences. I'm just facilitating a dialogue, but this is actually kind of factual. I have experts to back me up on how complicated grief is, and I have sources to prove that the 5 stages of grief was for if you're dying, not for your dead people that you miss. So this is a weirdly, completely factual video and not just a conversation that is probably true for a lot of people, but not necessarily true for all. This is true for all. Regardless, I do want to know your thoughts and questions about grief. You are welcome to comment here. You're welcome to hit me up on social media, Balerosaurus Rex on Instagram and Twitter. I'm not really on any other sites these days because I don't think social media is that healthy for us, guys. I'm Lauren-Blair Donovan. I hope you have a great day. I hope this video was helpful. Please subscribe, please like, please share with anybody that may find this series beneficial. And I will catch you guys next time. Bye. I just hit my tripod. That's a fun ending.